Most people start an Airbnb business, make a few £100s a month and think that's the ceiling. They list one property, get overwhelmed by managing it, and either quit or stay stuck at that level forever. Around 4 years ago, I started my first property charging £100 a night. Today, I run a portfolio generating over £100,000 per month with properties charging over £1,000 per night. And here's what most people don't realize. Scaling from one property to 6 figures per month isn't about working harder. It's about working completely different. In this video, I'm breaking down the exact framework I use to scale, to building a business that generates more in a month than most people make in a year. If you're stuck at 1 or 2 properties or you're just getting started, this is your roadmap. So let me take you back to how I actually got my first property. When I first started, I didn't do months of research. I just took action. And here's the important thing I learned. You will make more money in 2 months by being interested in other people than in 2 years by being an interesting person. That principle built my entire business. I didn't try to impress landlords. I was genuinely interested in them, their properties, and their goals. My first landlord had moved forward with me even though I had failed the affordability check. I had built such a strong relationship that he trusted me anyway. And over time, I built systems so good that landlords started reaching out to me. I didn't have to chase them anymore. And that's the goal. But it all starts with that first property. And that first property starts with relationships. Once I had my first property running, I hit my first major bottleneck. I was doing everything myself while working a 9-to-5 job. I needed more properties to make more money, but I didn't have the time because I was drowning in the operations. And that's when I made the decision that changed everything. I hired my first cleaner. Suddenly, the business ran while I was doing other things. I could focus on finding property number 2 instead of cleaning toilets. I found the cleaner on a Facebook group and I created checklists so every property was cleaned to the same standard every time. Because the truth is, inconsistency kills reviews, and reviews determine if you charge premium prices or compete on being cheap. But here's what most people don't do. I use a software where every cleaner has to clock in and take dozens of photos, before and after pictures, even including things like inside the microwave and pictures of inside the fridge. Every detail is documented. This way I know for sure that the cleaners are doing their job correctly. But here's the thing, Airbnb isn't just about having a property, it's about staging. The furniture needs to be in very specific locations, exactly how it was originally staged before any guest stayed over. If a pillow is out of place, or if a chair is moved, or if anything looks different from the photos, then the guests will notice and they leave reviews about it. The software also allows cleaners to submit reports if anything is broken. They are honestly the eyes and ears of your business if you hire the correct ones. They're going to be in the property way more than you are, so they catch problems before the guests do. And that was the first breakthrough. I realized everything can be delegated. The question isn't, how do I do this? It's, who can I get to do this? Just as I overcame one problem, I hit the next, guest communication. You see, as soon as a guest books, it's a non-negotiable that the guest must receive an immediate message acknowledging their booking with us and that we are excited to welcome them. Doing this sets a professional tone for their stay and it makes them feel reassured from the very first touch point. Honestly, guest experience is key in a hospitality business. Now, the problem was that guests were starting to book our properties at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and without a system in place, they were forced to wait until I woke up to hear back from me, which frankly isn't acceptable customer service. Given that this business is built on delivering an exceptional guest experience, relying on human availability alone was never going to allow me to scale. I needed a solution where guests would receive instant, high-quality communication whether I was online or not. I discovered something called automated messaging, which I would be able to run in the background without compromising the personal feel of the service. So to solve this properly, I implemented a channel manager which had an inbuilt automated messaging system And it honestly became a core operational system that removed human dependency from the guest experience. I automated almost 90% of the operations. Channel managers also sync calendars in real time across platforms like Airbnb and Booking.com. And this helps to eliminate double bookings. The channel managers were also automatically collecting the guest identification the moment a reservation was confirmed. And it also sent out rental agreements without me having to manually chase or follow up at all. I also integrated other similar business tools like Price Labs for automated pricing. Up until that point, I was manually adjusting prices, guessing what to charge and reacting when it was too late. And that is not strategy at all. It's actually gambling. By implementing Price Labs, I removed human guesswork entirely. These tools use historical booking data, local events, seasonality, and even external factors to automatically adjust prices in the background. If demand spikes, then the pricing will increase without me lifting a finger. If I have any dates that are not booked yet close to check-in, then the prices will adjust automatically, and that helps me to protect the occupancy. At that point, the business finally made sense as a system. There were cleaners that were handling the turnovers, I had automated communication was managing guests, and dynamic pricing was maximizing revenue without me being glued to a calendar. I wasn't working inside the business anymore. I was managing it. And here's the part most people get wrong. Setting this up doesn't take months. Finding a reliable cleaner takes a few days. Implementing a channel manager and pricing tools takes a few hours. Once those systems are in place, your job is no longer to micromanage. It's to move on and scale, because staying stuck in operations after this point is just self-sabotage. I finally had gotten my time back, and I eventually quit my job and I had a real team on the ground. I realized I needed more money now to really scale this business. But all the money had been invested into the properties, and that became my next bottleneck. It felt like an endless cycle. I started with limited capital and invested it all for freedom. But doing that, I ended up working more and lost my time. Then I regained my time, but dealt with a money problem again. It felt like a constant battle between time and money. But I was not going to give up so easily, so I started brainstorming. I cannot let money be the reason why I do not make more money. A real entrepreneur would make it work one way or another. I had to find a way to scale the business without money being the bottleneck. So I came across credit cards, and this is something nobody really talked about in the UK. In the UK, a lot of people don't use credit cards as much as, say, people in the US. We're brought up thinking that credit cards are something you should stay away from and that all debt is bad. But I learned that you could secure credit cards that are 0% interest, and you can pay the banks back in months later without any interest on top. This really mattered to me because as a Muslim, interest is forbidden. So using conventional loans or interest-based debt was never an option, which forced me to really be intentional about how I structured capital from day one. I used credit cards to handle the upfront expenses like the furniture and the setup costs. That was thousands of pounds, and it was a huge load off my back. And the great thing is, I would only pay a small fraction of that every month from my business profits. So nothing came out of my personal savings at all. But here's the thing, I couldn't use credit cards for rent payments. That's where investors come into play if you really want to do this with zero money down. By then, I had been so transparent on my entire journey, documenting everything on my social media pages. I had unknowingly built a following of people who were so invested and felt like they were on the journey with me. I proposed a hands-off investment opportunity to an investor who was really happy with the deal, and he gave me £12,000 upfront. In return, I promised to pay him back £14,000 within 12 months. That's around a 15% return, and I was able to take on 3 more properties with this loan, which allowed me to make a lot more in my business. So the truth is, it's not about having money, it's about being resourceful. This method had allowed me to take on multiple properties no matter how many cash is liquid and available in the bank account. The truth is, you don't need money to make a lot of money in property. You need to be resourceful. Once funding was no longer the constraint, I was onboarding more and more units. But I realized I was still doing the guest management myself. As you get more properties, it gets harder to speak to all guests personally. This is a hospitality business, and the best service guests can get is having someone call them and say, "Hey, how is everything going? Do you need anything from us? Is everything okay?" I was doing that myself. I was trying to get guests to extend their stays for more revenue, give us great reviews, offering late checkouts for extra fees. But I was honestly getting tired of it. So I hired a virtual assistant. I found my virtual assistant on onlinejobs.ph. Many VAs on these platforms have worked for Airbnb themselves and have all the hospitality knowledge out there. They handle the guest relations, they communicate with the cleaners, they deal with maintenance issues, and they hire handymen. I fully trained them and I gave them access to all my systems. To make sure I found the right person, I fully vetted them with personality tests, English level tests, Python tests. I made sure they'd be good in my business. I pay them around £4 an hour with bonuses on top, and they took so much off my plate. They even helped me make extra revenue by booking extensions, reaching out to new guests, and they even list the property on so many different platforms for us to get more traction. They were essentially paying for themselves, and that had given me my time back. Now, my role was just managing people and making sure everyone was doing their job. But here's the next level. I eventually hired an operations manager. This was just the icing on the cake. Instead of making calls to landlords and estate agents, overseeing all the day-to-day operations, I have someone in the UK doing all of that for me. The operations manager speaks to landlords, they meet with estate agents, handles all the on-the-ground relationship building. I'm scaling this business from my second home in Dubai. As long as you have the right people in the right places, you can run this business from anywhere in the world. And honestly, that's the final goal as an Airbnb business owner. Outsource all the operations and just manage the people who manage the operations. So at this point, I had all these units making around £45,000 a month. And I realized that the margins are quite small. In the market I was in, the competition wasn't about who offered the best experience or who had the nicest space. It was about who could drop their prices the fastest, creating a pricing war that dragged everyone towards the lowest possible margins. And I did not want to compete on whose Airbnb is the cheapest. And on top of that, operations were getting messy. More properties meant more cleaning. There were more guests, which meant more maintenance problems. So I completely shifted. I got into a market where not many people operate because they either don't know about it or they're too scared. Higher nightly rates, bigger properties. It took me around 10 properties to make £25,000 a month. Now I make that with just one property. I switched from charging around £100 per night to over £1,000 per night, and profit margins had increased from 25% to 50%. I ended up with a leaner operation, running fewer properties but generating significantly more revenue and profit. What took me nearly more than 3 years to build with the old model, I rebuilt in 1 year with the new model, making more than those 3 years combined. Here's what people need to understand. You need to stop chasing small profit margins. If you're only making a few £100 profit per month and something breaks or it's a slow season, then you're at zero. You can't be blinded by booking notifications. You need to be strategic in this market. Pick high demand and high occupancy properties, not just what's next to you or what everyone else is doing. When you operate a Class A property with amazing experience, honestly, the guests pay whatever price for that experience. They appreciate the quality, they don't complain about small things, and they leave great reviews and always come back. So in 2026, focus on high profit units. Stop competing on prices. Instead of competing on prices, compete on experience instead. Focus on property profit, not property count. So let's talk about the realistic timeline for this process. This took me and my business partner almost 5 years. I started in 2021 and now we're in 2026. And here's the truth, it doesn't have to take 5 years. I never invested in my knowledge early on. I thought I could just learn it all myself, and I tried to save money instead of investing in education. If I had invested in a mentor very early on, I could have done this honestly within 2 years. I would have saved 3 years and been so much further ahead from where I am right now. I eventually did invest in education, and my biggest regret is not doing it sooner, because the best investment you can ever make is in yourself, because you are the asset that determines how far everything else can go. So what's a realistic timeline for you? Well, if you try to do this yourself, figuring out everything through trial and error like I did, it might take you 4 to 5 years, maybe even more than that. But if you have the right guidance and you're the type of person who's willing to sacrifice everything and fully focus on this one thing with no distractions, you can absolutely achieve this within 1 to 2 years. The timeline does depend on how serious you are and how willing you are to invest in yourself and take action on what you learn. So this video gives you the complete roadmap, but there's a lot of detail I could not cover in just 20 minutes. For example, how do you actually negotiate with landlords? Or what do you say in the first message? Or how do you structure the contracts? Or even how do you find investors? What happens when things go wrong? That's exactly what I cover in my full program. I walk you through everything, through property selection, landlord negotiations, listing templates, pricing strategies, the exact systems I use, how to hire, all of it. I've taken 5 years of experience and have helped hundreds of people start and scale their own Airbnb businesses. I have turned everything I've learned into a step-by-step system so you don't have to figure out the hard way like I had to. If you're serious about building a real Airbnb business in 2026, I'm hosting a free live Airbnb masterclass this week. I'll break down everything step by step, and you can save your spot with the link in the description while it's still there. And if you did get value from this video, make sure to subscribe, because I'm going to keep sharing real strategies to help you build your own Airbnb business. I'll see you in the next video.